I wanted to be against.
Chair, we're now live streaming.
Okay. Are we ready to start, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I am Councillor Rob Dix, Chairman of the committee. The government has temporarily removed the legal requirement for local authorities to hold meetings in person during the coronavirus pandemic. All local authorities have been handed new powers to hold public meetings virtually. This meeting of the Overview Committee.
Councillor Dix. Councillor Dix, we've got a bit of a feedback.
All right. What's that like? Any different, Brian? Is it coming from my computer or someone else's? What's that like?
It might be worthwhile just trying to start again, please.
Okay, I'll start again. Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I am Councillor Rob Dix, Chairman of the committee. The government has temporarily removed the legal requirement for local authorities to hold meetings in person during the coronavirus pandemic. All local authorities have been handed new powers to hold public meetings virtually. This meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee will remain accessible to the public as it is being streamed live on YouTube. Whilst ensuring the councillors, officers and the wider public are able to follow government advice on social distancing measures in order to stop the spread of the virus. I'd like to ask all officers and elected members to observe our protocol for virtual meetings by asking that you mute your microphone when you are not speaking. The Strategy and Democracy Support Officer may also mute microphones to avoid background noise upon my request. Also, to support effective chairing and administration of the meeting. I'd also ask that when members wish to speak, that they identify themselves for the benefit of members of the public or press who are observing the meeting. Could I also ask members and officers just to put their mobile phones on mute or switch them off, please, for the meeting? Okay. We now take the attendance sheet. Councillor Bill Brady. All right. Councillor Bill Brady. Joe Amor.
Present.
Joanne Bell.
Present.
Alex Donaldson.
Present.
Sandra Duncan.
Present, Chair.
Ernest Gibson. Anne Hetherington.
Present.
Gladys Hobson.
Present.
Geraldine Kilgour.
Present, Chair.
You're very faint, Geraldine. John McCabe.
Present, Chairman.
Doreen Purvis.
Present, Chair.
Keith Roberts.
Present.
Jim Sewell. And Judith Taylor.
Present, Chair.
Chair, did you get my, I was on mute, I couldn't get off mute. Did you get my saying I was here?
Who's that? Is that you, Councillor Roberts?
Ernest?
Yes, I did. I got it. Okay, I'll just go through the names who are present for just in case there's a little bit of confusion over who said yes and no. These are the ones who are present: Joe Amor, Joanne Bell, Alex Donaldson, Sandra Duncan, Anne Hetherington, Gladys Hobson, Geraldine Kilgour, John McCabe, Doreen Purvis, Keith Roberts, and Judith Taylor. Okay?
I'm sorry, Chair, I'm present as well, Councillor Pat Hay.
Yeah, but you're not on the
No, I
committee,
know, but
Mr. Hay.
it's probably registered.
No, well, it's not on the attendance sheet, so officers will make a note that you were present when you give your report.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, well, can we now move to the main agenda of today's meeting, which is item 1? Can I ask if there is any declarations of interest? May I suggest, if you don't have a one now, as we proceed through the meeting, if something appears on the agenda that you think you may need to declare, if you just make it known to the chair. Right, item 2, minutes of the meeting of the 6th and 21st of October. Is that, can we take that as a true record?
Agreed.
Move them, Chair.
Okay.
That's great. Are there any matters arising? None?
Chairman,
Yes, John?
page 3, paragraph 4. Minutes
One
of the.
second. 1 second, John. Yeah.
Amend my question whether or not 4 beds would be sufficient, as St Clair's 8 beds were 70% occupied.
Yeah.
Statement from Matt Brown was, in terms of the specific numbers, if you look back at St Clair's previously, the bed occupancy was about 51% over the last 3 years of its existence.
Yeah.
Now, I've had that checked out and verified, and I've got the documentation here. I'm not going to read it all out, would be here all day, but just that is a complete and utter lie.
Well, John,
the occupancy, if you bear with me, the occupancy of
John,
that.
I'm going to have to stop you there, mate. This is, we're not here to debate the minutes of the meeting. We're here to see if they're a true record. They are a true record that we were given. I suggest.
Chairman,
No,
if you bear with me,
John, if you have any questions that need answers, I suggest you contact Matt Brown himself, because it isn't.
let's cut to the chase here. This is a scrutiny committee. This is a scrutiny committee.
No, John,
And we are here to scrutinise what partner organisations. Listen to me a minute. We are here to scrutinise what partner organisations tell us. If they are telling us untruths, then we need to unravel what the truth is.
John,
because we're making decisions based on false evidence.
John, you need to be very careful what you say about people telling lies at a public meeting. You need to be very careful.
They're making complete erroneous statements. They're making complete erroneous statements. You're not listening, Chairman. You're not listening.
I'm not listening.
Neither are you.
Can we move progress?
Yes.
We're not here to scrutinise. We're here to just accept everything that comes our way. Is that the way it is? Is that what we're here for?
Item 3.
Is that what this committee is devolved into?
No, it's not, John. As you know, John, you chair meetings. We're not here to go over nut and bolt items that were on the previous meetings. We're here to say if that was a true record that was recorded at that time. Whether it was a load of baloney or not, that is what we were given.
But as a committee, we should be taken to task.
Anything to bring to the attention of Matt Brown,
it happens in Parliament. We should be taking people to task.
Right.
We now move on decisions.
John, people in select committee.
Chair, can I just come in, please?
What's it about there, Councillor Roberts?
It's about, I think Councillor McCabe is 100% correct there.
Yeah, well,
This man come to this committee and told
no,
barefaced lies.
Progress. John,
Are you not there? Are you not going to let people tell the truth in here?
John, would you please give your report on the People's Select Committee?
So people can come here and tell barefaced lies to this committee and we're not going to stand up.
We don't know, Councillor Roberts, we don't know whether they were telling barefaced lies or not.
Well, if you let Councillor McCabe speak, he will tell you that they're telling lies.
We're not discussing it.
Absolute disgusting.
Right. John, could you give your report, please?
This is a report of the People's Committee and the work we've been doing.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Now, as you know, the work of the committee is still continued despite the COVID-19 crisis. And one of the most important things that has been brought our attention and which we've been working on as a committee is a poverty commission, which we started last year. it's become imperative, as people will appreciate, because of the pandemic, where people are losing their employment, and we're continuing this work. What we did in just recently in a meeting in September, we looked at the need to continue the work with digital inclusion. We also looked at universal credit and its impacts. Now, on the 24th of November, Heather Brown from Newcastle University, who's an expert in this region on certain matters, and she's going to talk to us about the link between wages and health. As we know, we are the most affected region. Now, obviously in a commission, and I'd like to commend a number of people here. One of them is Paul Baldacera, the Strategic Democracy Officer, and Sean Foster-Purvis for their help in these matters. They've been working very, very hard behind the scenes, as they always do. And we've got a series of recommendations, and instead of waiting, because it's going to take some time, this commission, instead of waiting for all the recommendations to be put in one report, what we're going to do is, as we come up with a recommendation, we're going to feed that into the cabinet process, because this is an urgent matter. People are being trapped in poverty when they needn't be there. Can I also give a big thank you to colleagues in the local authority for the work that they've done in regarding helping people in the poverty sector. The work that we pushed out through various partner organisations and charitable organisations like Heaven Helps has been imperative in reducing the effects of the poverty. But it is a real problem for our area, South Tyneside, at the moment. And that is why the recommendations that we have now will be pushing through to Cabinet before Christmas, and hopefully Cabinet will take on board the recommendations, and the forthcoming process will help alleviate people in poverty. It's an extremely important subject, Chair, and as we know, it's got massive impacts. Universal credit, for example, we all know about the time lag with 5-week delay. Affects us as an authority with rent arrears and things like this. It's absolutely a huge piece of work, and could I just ask colleagues to bear with us and I'll answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that, John. Ernest Gibson, I've just noticed you're at the meeting there. I'll just mark your attendance up.
I'm there, Rob.
Yeah,
I'm up.
I've just marked it up there. Right, yeah, you've heard Councillor McCabe's report there. Does any member have any questions or points they want to make about the meeting? If you just put your hand up. Yes, Geraldine Kilgour.
Thanks, Chair. As Vice Chair of that committee, I want to endorse Councillor McCabe's, support for the officers that have put in all of this work. I think it's really important to note that with poverty, it isn't just a matter of money, of giving of money. And we had an officers meeting just the other day. It's about putting them in touch with support mechanisms, staying with our community until those mechanisms are in place. To declare an interest, as well as Councillor McCabe mentioned, universal credit being in contract with DWP, I think that's important for me. I just think that we are, steaming ahead with this particular commission, and it is vitally important. And I would really ask our local community to engage with us on this, because we need to know from them just what it is that we need to support them with going on in the future in these very, very awful times. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Gilgour. Does anybody else want to ask any questions or make a comment?
Councillor Taylor's got a hand up, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Taylor, then Councillor Anne Hetherington.
Thanks, Chair. I visited a food bank last week in the ward on Dean Road, and they had actually run out of food, and they reckon their numbers have actually doubled since the last lockdown. So I'd just like to take a note of that, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Taylor. Anne Hetherington?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just for Councillor McCabe taking forward with their meeting, I think it's important. It's a vitally important role that the committee is playing in looking at poverty and trying to, get to the root of the problems, which I know are national and exacerbated by the lockdowns and COVID. But I think going forward, with the extension of the school meals funding through the holidays going forward, starting from Christmas, I think this is an important issue to include with that as well, because I think we need to ensure that basically funding of school meals throughout school holidays is intrinsic in whatever plans that the government have to tackle poverty. And I think we in South Tyneside do desperately need to support that going forward. So I welcome the report from the People Select Committee, and thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Ernest, why are you putting your hand up? Could you unmute yourself, Ernest?
Hey, it's the first time anybody's ever told us to unmute myself, like. Yeah, I've done that. No, I didn't put my hand up.
Oh no, I thought you had. You look as though you were touching the screen.
Oh, no, my
Anybody
screen,
else? No. Okay, thank you very much for that important report, Councillor McCabe. Like you said, it is a very, very important piece of work, and we look forward to the conclusion of it when we get there. As you say, it's going to be quite a length of time before we get there. They're talking about lockdowns going on now till after Christmas on the news apps this morning. So heavens knows what's going to happen. Right. Can we agree that?
Agreed.
Agreed, Chair.
Right, we now move on to the Select Committee. Councillor Ernest Gibson.
Hiya, everybody. I'll give you a little fly about what we're actually doing. In relation to cycle infrastructure in the borough for people travelling to school, that was on the September meeting. But what came out about that, about cycles, and no number of you do have issues with it, and people have raised it, is cyclists on pavements outside of shops. Now, what we did was we wrote to Kim McGuinness, who's wrote to the Chief Superintendent, who's going to address the issue. I did receive a letter. For those who want a copy of the letter, I'll send it to you so it can be implemented within your ward, because they said the police can take action. Prime example, I was at the Nook shops a few weeks ago. Elderly woman came out to Greg's and she was nearly knocked over, a bike going quite fast, substantially fast. And this is happening all the time. And I know with COVID, we've put a two-way cycle where people are going on along one side of the path and the other side of the path. And then you've got these lads coming along, or whoever, on these pedal bikes going quite fast. So we're written to the Kim McGuinness, Climate Commissioner, and she did send a response. So we'll have a copy of that letter if anybody wants it. The October meeting will look at climate change and we are moving progress within reduction of carbon. The several large-scale development projects within South Tyneside, the council's further support reduction within the 3 to 5 year target, including the Viking Energy Centre, the Middlefields Energy Centre also. But once COVID's over, I think if we could arrange a meeting, a site visit would be good for members to see actually what we're actually doing. So possibly we may have it open to all select committees or all members to visit, which would be a great thing. The other thing what came about, and it's a massive things keep coming about, was Seaside Commission. Now, we did look at HMOs, which I know is going to be on our December meeting. Past few weeks, we've had members in certain wards raising concerns about HMOs popping up, ex-boarding houses, bringing people in. But part of our commission, when we looked at HMOs, was that HMOs shouldn't be like sort of put where 365 money and development is in seaside towns to bring the infrastructure into the borough, because you find that a big amount of deprivation happens in these areas. You have people hanging around bus stops, you have the people as we did before. And at the next meeting, we're going to raise concerns about the HMOs, because I know we went to Cabinet and Mark Walsh has been absolutely fantastic, the lead member. We've been introducing licensing, which we've put the recommendations to. But we need to go a bit further with the HMOs. What we initially outlined was that anybody setting an HMO, anybody could do it at one time. They must have a license, there must be a proper proper person and fit person. Same as, you know, when people have to get licensed for doormans or taxis, they should go down the same procedure, but also they should have some form of training to point certain individuals in certain directions because of their needs. Because some of these people have mental health issues, some of them have health issues, so we need them pointed in the right direction. So at the next committee in December, we will be addressing the HMOs, and over the next few months, we will be looking at our Seaside Town Commission, which is like developing the seafront, trying to bring work into this. I know we've got IAPs, we've got a number of issues coming about, but we want to develop the seafront and make it a fantastic place to be, such as you see the development, what's going on at the moment, as Marsden, you know, the steps, Redwall Steps, which is stopped at the moment, and which will start again in next year because it's got to go around when the nesting season and certain tides. So that'll be at a standstill for a further 6 to 7 months. Then you'll see it all start up again. So that's my report. Thank you. Anybody got any questions? I'll answer them. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Gibson. Yes, on your first item, Councillor Gibson, I'd be very interested. I'm sure the people of the East Shields CAF would be interested in the letter you received from Kim McGuinness.
I'll make sure you get a copy of it after the meeting.
I mean, like every shopping centre we have, at the Nook, we have little pockets of antisocial behaviour. So I'd be very interested in seeing what Kim McGuinness suggests we do.
Chair,
We
can
have
I just add something to that? About the cycle, you know, what came about as well, the cycles are lethal weapons, especially with elderly people, disabled people, because there was a person who would do know, and I think Bill Braley knows her as well, and her son raised it. She was hit by a pedal cycle. She was 99-year-old. Within 6 months, she was dead. And the doctor said it was the shock of being hit by the cycle and the onset of the injuries what she received. So, and these cycles are not going very slow. They're going quite fast, as you've probably seen yourself. And we need to address this issue.
Well, you're correct, Councillor Gibson. A couple of years ago, I think a pedestrian was killed in London, weren't they? Run over by a bike. So they're lethal weapons. I wouldn't like to be hit by one. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Roberts?
Chair, can I just put my apologies in, please? I'm going to have to go because I've got some more work to do.
Okay, no problem, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you.
Anybody want to have any questions for Councillor Gibson?
Yes, Councillor Donaldson.
Judith Taylor, then Gladys Hobson.
Councillor Donaldson.
And Councillor Donaldson afterwards.
No problem.
Thank you, Chair. Ernest, I'll be very interested in the HMOs because we're finding that when they get an HMO, it's only to be 4 people actually in the building, and there's actually more. And we need a policy in place actually to stop these people from adding more people into their buildings. Thank you.
Judith, can I just come in on that? We did raise that when we actually did the commission because Frank Lakes down Fowler Street, if you recall, they put in for an HMO and they're waiting for the recommendations of our committee coming back. Originally, that was for 11 people, then it went to 34. So we basically put a stop to that because of, you know, we want to introduce these licensing, want a fit and proper person, want to make sure these landlords are not, you know, charlatans, you know, just put money in a boarding house like they have in Beach Road in certain areas and just let them, you know, there's an off license at the top of the street and more traffic between the off license and the HMO. We want to try to stop that culture. But you're right in what you said about the number of people coming in. Northumberland Police, we had a meeting with, I think it was PC Cooper, and she actually said was one of the issues is we've got, it's the, what was it called? The probation services. And what happens is a number of occasions, the probation service finds a place for somebody and they just bang them in it. And nobody says a word, nobody knows. They're not registered with a council, they're not registered anywhere. So this is why we need to push harder for the licensing to come about so the council knows who's in certain properties. We need more regular inspections because, you know, the inspection regime was every 5 years. And I think we should, if they're on a target scale, on a very low scaling, we should be in, well, looking at these HMOs every few weeks, every 6 to 7 weeks, to have a look to see actually who's in them. Because the police said they would go one day and there was 3 people in, then go the next day, there would be 50 people there. And that's why we need licence in HMOs as well. You're quite right.
Thank you,
Gladys Hobson?
Thanks, Chairman. Can I suggest that the letter from the Police Commissioner about the cyclists goes to all the CAFs, so that because it affects every ward in the in the borough, because you know we all have problems with cycles. We get it on a regular basis, and you know there's very limited to what we can do about, because they're here and then they're gone. You know, it's not like a car where you can take the number plate down and you can get a hold of somebody. So it is a big problem. On the HMOs, I mean, we've got a major problem. What's happening now, we're finding, is that because of the lockdown, the boarding houses aren't making any money because they're not allowed to take people in. So they're going over to HMOs. They're just taking, just putting people in, because with a lockdown, you can't take anybody in for bed and breakfast, but you can't take them in as an HMO. So it's something we're going to have to look at very carefully over the next meeting. So I do welcome Ernest's report to the next meeting of the Place Committee. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Donaldson.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Ernest, for bringing this up. It did become, as the Chair and I both know, a bad problem at the Nook, the cycling, and also the cycling, the pavements at Whitburn. So due to all our efforts, contacting the Commissioner and the police, the new sergeant for the Shields area, Sergeant Quinn, was taking immediate action, I understand, involving uniform officers and plainclothes officers to try and do something about this. It is an offence and they can be fined, and we found all this out about it. So he's coming along to the Shields CAF meeting on Thursday evening, understand. We'll probably get an update on this, and I think as well as the notice from your committee, Ernest, I think, Chair, if we learn anything, we should pass it around all the CAFs and find out about this. It's a big problem. It's older lads. It's not, people were blaming young children, and I've watched myself, and lads, I would say 19, 20, ages like that, coming down, as has been said, very fast. They don't even hardly stop for the crossing on Sunderland Road. They glance and go across there and then go down the bottom part of the Nook. So it is a big problem. It's not just a little thing it was before. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Do you want to respond to any of that, Ernest?
I'll just make sure every chair gets a copy. In fact, Chair, through you, should I send every member, and then every member has similar issues in their wards, so they can enlighten people if people raise it in their wards. Because due to that, I know when we've raised things in the past, the police will say, oh, there's not much we can do, get on to community safety. We had a similar issue about horses. Now, I took it up with the Police and Crime Commissioner, who was Vera Bird at the time, and Vera come back and told him, oh, the police is wrong. You can, under 1815, there's a law says that you can be prosecuted for riding your horses in public places and on footpaths and near shops and things like that. So there is laws there. So if people want a copy of that, I will send you that, because we had issues with horses as well. Okay.
Unfortunately, we don't have many issues with horses up at the new shops, Ernest. But
we do at West Park, Chairman.
Right. Can we agree that?
Agreed.
Excellent.
Agreed, Chair.
We now move on to the contracts and performance panel. Councillor Dean.
Yes, I'm Councillor Stephen Dean, Vice Chair of the Contracts Performance Panel. At our meeting in September, we received a general update on our commercial activity, as we do at the start of each municipal year. In the October meeting, we considered the award of the contract of the Albert Road stroke Kirkston Bridge maintenance contract and an update on the Holborn scheme. Actually at the meeting where we asked for the contractor to consider making it possible for mobility scooters to use the Kirkston Bridge, what is locally known to everybody as the Banana Bridge, which has been removed for repair and reinstatement. And we've just been given the response yesterday from the project manager, where he stated, having looked into this issue and following legal guidance, it is established that all legal users should be given the same access to use the facility. With this in mind, it is therefore planned to omit the barriers and ensure that all mobility scooter, wheelchair and pushchair users can use the bridge without hindrance. Please note that unfortunately, this will make the bridge easier to access for motorbikes, but this is a matter that should be referred to the police if and when it happens. Signs will be installed stating no motorbikes allowed, and additional signs for push cyclists to dismount when crossing the bridge. And then for the future, at the last meeting of the calendar year, June, December, we will be looking at how we are ensuring the quality of our residential and nursing care homes, as well as looking at the contracts for help at home and at Haven Court. Lastly, I would just actually like to thank the officers, Brian Springthorpe and Peter Lawton, for all the sterling work they do on behalf of this panel. Thank you. If there's any questions, I'll answer them.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Dean. Does anybody have any questions for Councillor Dean?
Yes, Chair. It was just one. It's basically on environment as well. You know, you said the contracts panel. Do you cover gardening? You know how they do the gardening, the edging, cutting. Your committee covers that, because the reason why, you've probably seen a substantial amount of cleaning going on around the borough. The drains have been, with me being coastal, inshore air flooding and everything, I've been raising concerns. Now, a lot of the drains are flooded, as you see, around the borough. Now, we had an issue on the Parkway estate a few years ago. My other colleagues will tell you, we had a tank put in which was £2.6 million. Now, we went and there was a flood, and the flooding, the tank was 3/4 full, and the rest of the flooding was due to all the stuff down the drain. Now, a lot of it, what's happening is the grass, they cut the grass, the grate, come round, blow it, but they blow it into the gutters. So where does it go? Goes down the drain, blocks the drain. Council ends up with flooding. Council ends up with have to buy white goods and get men out, clean the drains. So we're not actually saving money. It's costing more money sometimes by these cutting the grass, because they're actually blowing it down the drains and causing other people's got to go out, clean the drains out, and it's causing blockages, causing flooding. Could you just have a look at the contract when he's actually doing that? Because I think, you know, it might be a little bit dearer than picking the grass up, but in the long run, it's going to be cheaper, environmentally cheaper, but it's going to be cost-saving as well.
Yeah, I think that's certainly a very valid point you're coming up with there. And certainly I'll make a note of that. And certainly I think it's something we should really address, really, to make sure that, you know, because it does actually, you know, I know from personal thing as well, on our ward, there is a lot of problems where people's complaining about, you know, the grass and all that causing the blockages to the drains. So I'll certainly make a note of that for it to take place for you.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? No. Can we agree the report?
Agreed.
Agreed. We now move on to the Housing Performance Panel. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chair. At the first meeting of the municipal year, the panel considered what the position was with regard to homelessness and the effect of COVID-19. Before the pandemic, South Tyneside had a low incidence of rough sleepers, but due to COVID, this had increased to between 20 and 30. The council has 16 units to use for emergency accommodation, and more became available after the empty management dwelling orders were extended. The government has not been front-loading the funding, and members stressed the need for a sustainable strategy and increased finance, or any finance. A member queried how many people were now sleeping rough and was advised that there were about 4 people who weren't interested in being rehoused. In November, we looked at our performance against South Tyneside Homes Delivery Plan and our lettings review. We received an update on the actions taking forward our integrated housing strategy, which includes preventing homelessness, our aging population, and improvements to the private rented sector. Over the next year, the challenges include COVID-19, budget constraints, impact of on the housing market, homelessness and any increase in rough sleeping, older persons accommodation, economic recovery, and a planning white paper. Priorities for the panel for the remainder of the municipal year will include homelessness, rent arrears, and welfare support for residents. That's my report.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Stevenson. Does anybody have any questions or comments to make? Yes, Doreen Purvis, then Joe Amor.
Right, thanks, Rob. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. On social media recently, there was a picture of about 3 guys sleeping rough on the walkway at the seafront, and people were being asked to take food and clothing for them. I think there should be more of an awareness of what we actually do to tackle rough sleeping, because we've got a unit, and so nobody should be sleeping out down at the seafront when they could be found accommodation. But I think the problem is people just aren't aware or don't really know about this. And while it's all very, sort of humane to take people food and clothing, they're better off receiving targeted care, and that means finding them proper accommodation where they can get the necessary help. So I would like a bit more awareness of this.
Yes, Councillor Purvis. We do have officers who go out and have a look round to see who's sleeping rough, or if there's anybody who needs any help. Usually they don't want help at all, and I'm not sure if it's not a case of maybe this was a bit staged, because I've heard about it as well. So, yes. But I can assure you that the officers are out looking for anything like this.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Amor.
Thank you, Chair. I was just interested where you mentioned four of the homeless refused to be rehoused. I wonder what the reason for was this. I mean, is it mental health reasons? I mean, is it something that needs to be looked into?
Most of these people have been homeless for some time. They just don't want to live in accommodation, and that really is their choice. You know, if they're not causing a problem, you know, the officers do see them. They ask them if they're managing okay. There's not really much we can do. If they don't want to be rehoused, that's it, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, is anybody else? Thank you for that, Councillor Stevenson. We now move on to Children Adults Safeguarding Panel. Councillor Pat Hay.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Can you hear me? Yes?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. The Safeguarding Panel met back in September. It's been very much business as usual throughout the pandemic. The updates that we received in September were on domestic abuse, and we were given the assurance of the quality of the single assessment process which has been undertaken. The safeguarding activity obviously has been paramount throughout this pandemic and will continue to be so, to safeguard all of our young people, our elderly, and anyone else that actually falls into that category. The partnership working continues with the police and with our different agencies that we work with. In terms of safeguarding activity, members can be assured, and members of the public can be assured, that it is very much business as usual. And as I said, it's more paramount given these unprecedented times that we're living through. The Safeguarding Board has continued to meet, and I'd very much like to thank our partners, especially Jackie Nolan, who heads that up from our behalf, from the council. They've worked tirelessly throughout this pandemic, and I'm sure they will continue to do so. There's new technology being introduced to improve the safeguarding assurance, which is very important. You know, and it's as long as this pandemic continues. The focus of the remainder of this municipal year will be to continue looking stringently at any safeguarding issues that may arise. And that's it, Chair, unless anybody has any burning issues or questions for me.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hay. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Anne Hetherington?
Right. Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Hay, for that report. Could I just ask whether you know or are aware whether COVID has actually impacted how officers have to interact when there are concerns raised, because families are in lockdown? It's not as obvious, you know, that there are problems any longer, because if children haven't been at school or their bubbles are down, etc., and so, you know, they are in the house. So I'm just wondering how things are being managed because of the impact that COVID is having on us. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hetherington, for that. I think the officers are very much on top of it. Obviously, it's had an impact on everybody, but I wouldn't say any of the figures are up. And that's something that myself and my Vice Chair, Judith Taylor, keep an eye on all of the time to see if there's any increase, which is, you know, very important. But I have to say our officers are very much on top of it. So at present, there hasn't been a significant, maybe a slight, but not a significant increase during this pandemic.
Anybody else? No. All right, we move on to the last one, Education Skills Performance Panel. Councillor Ellison, I'm not sure if Councillor Ellison's here. Paul is...
No, I can provide that report, Chair, very briefly if you wish.
Okay, Paul, if you could do that.
Yeah, the Education Skills Panel have been very aware that their work on the Skills Commission has been given heightened significance, given the number of people who've lost their jobs and have to reskill, and the many young people whose options have been severely restricted during the pandemic. That work has a couple of stages to go. They had intended to hold a session where they were going to ask a range of businesses what they needed from the local authority, colleges, skills providers, in order that their needs are met, and that was going to happen this month. However, given the second lockdown, we were advised that it would be perhaps better to put this off until the lockdown had ended, as businesses are focused on survival, many of them, and so we've delayed that one. Once we have had that session, we will be talking to key stakeholders such as the LEP, South Tyneside College, and the Chamber of Commerce, with a view to developing recommendations early in the new year. At the last meeting in October, we did consider how the skills agenda was reflected in the economic recovery plan. The economic recovery plan has sort of advanced a lot of the things that were happening. And they have actually looked at a number of immediate issues as well in the panel. The ones that immediately come to mind are school attendance during the pandemic and the return to school in September. And I'll try and take any questions, Chair.
Yeah. Bearing in mind, Paul won't have any of the answers for you, but he will pass them on to Councillor Ellison. Does anybody have any questions or comments that they would like passing on?
Councillor Taylor, Councillor Taylor's indicated she wishes.
Oh, Councillor Taylor, you're not on my screen at the moment. Just bear 1 second. Right, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I think since the pandemic, I think you know, a lot of work should be basically doing more computer skills, because I know I lost my job and got made redundant, and I've had to skill up on another job. And I think a lot of the things that let us down in this new job was computer skills. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah,
Is
Chair,
that
I can just say that there is a lot of work going on in digital inclusion. So that work will be coming to, if not this committee, certainly to the People Select Committee in terms of taking things forward.
Okay, is there anybody else? I'll just scroll through. Hello, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Brady, I've just seen you there. Yes, okay, that's the final one. Can I thank the councillors for their reports, and can the committee agree to note the reports?
Hello, Chair.
Yes.
Chair, please, I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, who's that?
It's Councillor Duncan.
Oh, sorry, Sandra. Yeah, go ahead.
You didn't see my little finger go
No,
up.
your face is not there. You're back on. Your face is not on my...
Oh, sorry. Well, I'm here now. Thank you, Chair. Really, what I wanted to do was commend this last item that we've just sat through with all the chairs of the various different committees, because I found that incredibly helpful in that we all in our own committees and different select committees and everything else, but we don't have much interaction with other committees, that we've dealt with today. And I found that really helpful to hear the chairs and vice chairs of those committees give us information about each one. And I just think it's a very good idea to continue to do this, because it means that we interact with each other a great deal more. And I wonder if you could do some more of this, please, Chair, because I found it really, really helpful. And I'm sure the members of the public also found it helpful.
This is a regular item on the agenda, and it's on every 2 or 3 meetings. Is that right, Paul?
Yeah, I've never seen it.
We don't have them every meeting.
No, I realise.
A couple of meetings.
I think we just help to have this interaction between all of us as to what's going on in the various subcommittees.
Good point. I think that's why it's on the agenda. I think there's actually 1 or 2 extra items on the agenda there on these the performance panels. It looks a lot more beefier than it was the last time.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Chair, can I just add something?
Yes, John.
It's Ernest.
Oh, sorry, Ernest. You sounded like John there.
All right. Oh, John. Do what I want then, Ghana. What Judith raised about digital and about communications, if we're doing the Seaside Town Commission, which is in bringing investment into the towns, but part of that's the Lord Bassam report, which indicates about digital communications and preparing people for jobs and skills. So that is an excellent report to look at. Now, the Select Committee, we will be looking at further at probably digital commission and education on, because he brought that to light, how to bring seaside towns back up to standard was digital communication and education as well through training. So we will pass that on to the relevant committees if they wish so at the point we cover that.
Okay. Could you pass that on there? Which committee was that for, Ernest?
The Place Select Committee were actually doing the committee.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay then. Yeah. If you could do that, Ernest. Yeah. Right. We now move on to item 4, the Path to Excellent update. Now, Paul, could you just explain to members why Caroline Latter isn't here today?
Yeah.
Because of COVID restrictions and that type of thing. Before you give.
I mean, the reason why we'll put this on the agenda is I'm conscious of the fact that you haven't heard anything this year about Path to Excellence. Myself, Nigel Cummings from Sunderland, and Stephen Gwilym from Durham did touch base with Caroline a couple of weeks ago. You'll understand that the NHS is very preoccupied with COVID and winter pressures. So we thought, as it's really sort of a holding report, because as you will see, there's not that much to report back on. I didn't think it was really fair to pull them away from their very, very important work. If I could sort of just bring you up to speed. Just to let you know, and members of the public, there is a joint health scrutiny committee looking at the Path to Excellence, which involves councillors from South Tyneside, Sunderland, and latterly councillors from Durham, representing North Durham. In March, there was a clinical services review clinical services review teams involving a number of clinicians that were building up proposals at the time to put together a consultation that would start after May. Obviously, in March, those clinicians were stood down so they could concentrate on the pandemic, and they've only really just started meeting up again to reset the review, because obviously a number of things have changed in the last few months, and so they're trying to assess exactly what has changed and what the proposals might be as a result. So they're reviewing their case for change to update with the new information, including impact assessments. The issues driving the programme from their perspective remain the same, which is staffing pressures, clinical quality, and dealing with demand in an efficient way. They do anticipate that there will be an update for stakeholders in the new year about how things are being taken forward. And in the meantime, we'll try and keep in contact with them. And if there's anything significant comes up from their team, then we will report back. And I'll try to take any questions, Chair. Obviously, if it's of a technical nature, I would have to pass them on.
Yeah, thanks for that, Paul. Paul, could you find out when would be the earliest Caroline Latter or one of our team could come to the committee, just to give a more up-to-date report on where they are at the moment?
Certainly, yes, Chair. I mean, I would anticipate that being very early in the new year, but I will check on that.
Yeah, if you could do that, it would be most helpful. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Paul? Yes, John? Bear in mind, John, that Paul will not be able to answer them. He'll only be able to pass them on for you.
Yeah, it's just a comment, Chairman.
Yeah.
Right from the start, I've been very, very suspicious about some of the measures that have taken place. I understand some of the elements in why they've done what they've done in regard of forming one trust, etc. But I'm always conscious, again, of information received. One of the earliest, in fact, the first Path of Excellent presentation I went to was at Jarrow, and the people there put a report together, and one of the items in it was about transport, which is most important for people that are representing in the Heaven area, getting through to Sunderland. And they had on the report that you could get from Heaven to Sunderland in 10 minutes. Yes, if you were Michael Schumacher or Nigel Hamilton. And this is what I was trying to talk about earlier on. We are a scrutiny committee, and we are there to scrutinise information received from partner organisations. So I appreciate, I'm not going to ask Paul anything, but my comment is this, that the information that we receive should be as early as possible so that we can take steps and measures to protect the residents that we serve.
Yeah, I think you got a good point there, Councillor Cave. I mean, I've mentioned it before. I once went up to Sunderland Hospital from South Shields in my car, and it was a very quiet day. I hit all the green traffic lights right dead on time, and it still took me 25 minutes to get there. So I do think there is still issues with transport. Does anybody else have any comments or questions that they would like to put forward to Caroline?
Yes. Chairman, can I just comment on that last point?
Yes, you can, Gladys.
There was a committee set up to deal with transport to the hospitals, and it was meeting on a regular basis, but since the COVID, we haven't had a single meeting. So that there's been no meetings taking place. It was councillors from South Tyneside, Sunderland, officers and transport officials, and we did get a map printed, but everything just seems to have died a death. There's nothing happened at all on that committee since before March.
Yeah, I think
Gladys,
sorry, Paul, could I just say, Gladys,
I've got the same question for you as I did to Paul. Could you find out when would be a possible earliest date that could come back with some sort of report on transport issues to the hospitals?
Yes, Chair, there was a meeting. It wasn't a meeting of that committee. It was a meeting with, because they appointed a company to do a similar job in terms of transport, and it was a meeting with them, which I think Councillor Flynn might have attended. But you're right, there hasn't been a meeting of that particular working group, and I will come back and see when that can.
If you would, Paul, I appreciate that. Doreen Purvis.
Thanks, Chair. I've received complaints from constituents that they're having to wait an inordinate length of time for appointments about routine medical matters. In one instance, there's a lady, her husband's been waiting for 2 years for an appointment at Sunderland. Can we have some sort of response as to why these delays are taking place and what is being done to resolve them?
Yes, I can certainly take that back.
Councillor Deans, then Councillor Hetherington.
Yeah, hi, yeah, it's Councillor Dean. Yeah, no, obviously I'm disappointed that Carolyn hasn't been able to come to answer any questions or concerns when we have. I certainly have plenty of questions I would have liked to put to her. But the main thing I would just like to say is the Hospital Trust. It should not be thinking of making any their proposed options, let alone making any changes in the light of the present pandemic. So it's maybe need to think again. In fact, the pandemic already shows the need for more acute beds, more trauma and elective services, not less on South Tyneside. And do we know where the funding will be coming from? There was talks in the past about the second phase being, wanting grant kind of loans from the council and that, but and obviously as well, we still await the Supreme Court judicial appeal decision on whether, in the path to excellence, that for things to remain the same is an option with acute services remaining at South Tyneside, but wasn't put down as an option, and so it was not legal, so it's just things like that. But obviously, I've got about 10 questions here, which I was wanting to put. Where I think maybe would be I'll maybe pass them on to Paul or something, or send them to Carolyn, because there's about 10 questions I would actually like to ask.
That would probably be the best way, Councillor Dean. I think if you pass them on to Paul, then he will pass them on to Caroline for them to be answered.
What I'll do, Councillor Dean, is pass them on to Caroline, but I will pass them on to Matt Brown as well, because probably some of them he would be more best placed to answer.
Yeah,
that's great. All right.
Councillor Hetherington.
Right, thanks, Chair. Again, I just want to reinforce the point that Councillor Dean's made, because I don't think how anyone can say that the situation is the same as it was before, because it obviously isn't the same as it was before. And I think we also now have the added inclusion of Durham in with what we're looking at as the Joint Health Scrutiny Committee. So things have changed. So how they can say that they're still looking at the same issues, I think is very short-sighted of them. And I think we need to challenge them on this when we do eventually get to discuss things with them, in the light of the things that we now know and in the light of going forward, because we're going to have to live with COVID, for the foreseeable future and probably forever. So things will not change in terms of, going forward. So they need to adapt their attitudes towards how they're going to handle things. And if they are talking about drawing up proposals, my concern now, again, because we're impacted with COVID, is how are they going to consult with residents on these proposals, because they did hold face-to-face sessions and workshops, which they will not be able to do if we're going forward with constant in and out of lockdowns. And what we can't have is that our residents cannot take part in the consultations. We have to ensure that they do provide a means for residents to properly participate, and not every person will have the luxury of being able to take part digitally. So, you know, I think they do have to start thinking outside of the box and start changing their attitudes. And I know we do at the committee challenge them quite robustly on a lot of the things, and I think we need to maintain this, but we need to raise these issues before we even get to the stage where they've already written their proposals. Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Can I just come back? I mean, to be fair on the CCG, I mean, part of what they're doing now with the clinicians is to look at how things have changed. So they are trying to look at how they need to adapt their proposals. In terms of the consultation, I think it's going to be a case of timing. I wouldn't presume what they would say, but I certainly don't think that they would be wanting to go into a consultation at a time when people can't participate.
Is there any other members of the committee who would like to ask a question?
There's Councillor Hay.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, Councillor Hay isn't a member of the committee, but I was
No, I know I'm not. I just want to give my...
I'll ask if there's any other member first, then I'll bring Councillor Hay in. No, yes, Councillor Hay?
I'm sorry, Chair, I just need to leave the meeting. I've got something else on. It was just to give my apologies.
Okay. If anybody else needs to leave, you know, of the other committees, they're quite welcome to do so now. Because I know, John, you're going after the end of this presentation, aren't you?
Yeah, thanks for that, Chair. I'll be going now. I'll see you at 1:15. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, colleagues.
Right. Is there anybody else? No? Can I thank the officers for his report, as best as he could do, and ask the committee to agree and note the report?
Agreed.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you. We now move on to item 5. County lines. Now we have had Jackie Nolan here before to give a report, a very important report, in my opinion, on county lines, and I'm sure I should probably give you a brief description of what county lines are before I report. But we let Jackie give a report. Then, as usual, we'll take questions from the floor. So, Jackie, when you're ready.
Great, thank you, Chair. Ryan, I'm going to share the screen now. Yeah.
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay. Can everybody see the screen? Yeah.
It's just, that's it there. Yeah, it's there now, Jackie.
Brilliant. Okay. So good morning, everybody, and lovely to see people again, isn't it, in these crazy times. So yeah, I've been before, but this is really an update around county lines. So we know county lines is a form of criminal exploitation, and commonly it's been linked with drugs. However, what we're seeing now is a bit of a change in the model of county lines, where money and weapons and actually people are involved in county lines now, becoming more apparent in many towns and cities. Vulnerable people across all age spectrums are targeted, and very sadly, it's our children under the age of 10. And the rationale for why gangs will exploit children under the age of 10 is that you cannot criminally take young people to court under 10. They can't be criminalized. People with learning difficulties are also a very easy target for these gangs. The children and the young people are used to travel up and down the UK to drop off drugs or whatever else the gangs are wanting to transport. So often these children, young people and vulnerable adults find themselves in unfamiliar areas, stranded, isolated, which sadly makes them more vulnerable to further exploitation. This map is quite old, believe it or not, because the National Crime Agency have indicated they cannot actually keep up with the level of lines that are on in the country. We estimate there's about 2,000 plus lines going on in the UK at the moment. So you'll see from here, the red dots are where the drugs, weapons, money, people are sent from, and the destination are the blue spots. So, you know, it would be very naive of us to think that it's not in the northeast, because clearly it is. However, some reassurances that there is no evidence as yet that we have a county line coming in to South Tyneside or actually going from South Tyneside. What we do know is that the main line into the northeast is from Merseyside in Liverpool. So the current situation from the police is that they indicate there are 6 key lines impacting on the northeast, predominantly Newcastle. And as I've said, the key line into the northeast is from Merseyside. Believe it or not, the police data puts the northeast far below any other region in the country for county lines. We've seen a difference in what is being transported. So the county lines includes children and young people and adults. And why that's changed is because the county line can use people to move into different areas to be the workers of the gangs. So they don't necessarily just transport, they then become part of the workforce. Drugs are particularly prevalent, cocaine, heroin, but what has been noticed very recently is the increase in, excuse me, pregabalin. That's a drug that can enhance the effect of many of the more harder drugs, but sadly, you can mix these drugs with other things. If you mix pregabalin with a lot of things, it will actually kill you. So that has a serious, serious implication. What a lot of people ask us is, you know, surely children are aware of, you know, the dangers of county lines. We've done an awful lot of work with our children. However, if you understand that these children are offered a luxurious lifestyle, and if they are offered a job, they are offered £500 for one job. The children, I mean, any of us offered £500 to go and drop a package off, you know, you could well be enticed, especially our children and young people, who to them, they're just doing the job of the postman, is what some young children describe it as. They don't look in the packages and they get paid £500 in their hand. So that's a huge temptation to keep in the cycle. However, what these children quickly realise is, yes, for one job, you've received £500. The gangs will then say to these children, right, we've got another job for you. It's a little bit further away, but for this job, we're going to give you £1,000. Some young children, young adults indeed, feel that that's like a lottery win. So they will go ahead with that. Sadly, what happens on this second part of the county lines is these children are paid the money whilst they have the drugs or whatever else in their hand. They are then ambushed by the same gang. They are beaten up, they have the packages removed from them, and they have the money removed from them, and they are put in front of the gangs, and they are tortured basically to be told that actually you've lost the package, you've lost the money, therefore you will have to work for us until your debt is paid off. These children can never pay that debt off. We've heard of horrific use of fear and intimidation, in particularly the gangs in London, where they have actually removed the hands of young children who have lost packages. And that's as a use of a threat to the other young people who may not be as rigorous with what they're meant to be doing. You may have heard, or you may recall the sad death, excuse me, of Jaden Moody, the 14-year-old young boy last year, who was cycling through London on an evening. He was knocked off his bike and was repeatedly stabbed by a rival gang member. That was all over the news, and then we heard no more. We heard no more because Jade Moody was part of a rival gang for County Lines. Fortunately, the gang member who killed him has been jailed. So children are recruited, you won't be surprised, by the use of social media, offering them glamorous and rich lifestyles. The most favourable platform is Snapchat and Instagram, which is on all the children's mobile phones. A lot of the other children who are victims of county lines will recruit other children, and gang members will prey on a child's vulnerability, be that poverty, disrupted education, or being in the looked after system. They will act on what children and young people want. So, you know, the classic ones are the new mobile phone or the new trainers. They'll often make use of children's bank accounts in which to get money passed through the system without anybody kind of querying it. There's addiction, in particularly for young adults who may have drug and mental health issues. They will get them more addicted and therefore relying on the gangs. The other kind of message we've been told by children and young people who've been caught up in it, a lot of them will say it actually wasn't Facebook, Snapchat or Instagram, it was via music. Now, any of you there with grandchildren, children yourself, you may have heard something called drill music. If you haven't heard of it, I would tell you, go on YouTube and listen to it. Drill music is a violent description of gang activity in the form of music. And we have, it's a kind of a rap kind of situation, music, and that really entices our young people who are really engaged in music. They do enjoy the music, but then they get caught up in the messages and how they can get in touch with the gangs. So how do we know the signs that some of our children and young people may be caught up in county lines? Excuse me, for people who are aware of child sexual exploitation, you'll see the very similarities here. So children persistently going missing, unexplained acquisition of money, clothes or mobile phones, excessive receipts of texts or phone calls, being in relationships with older controlling individuals, leaving home or care without explanation, and significant deterioration in how they physically look, and a decline in school performance. As with anything dealing with gangs or activities, there's always a new language associated with this. So these are the 5 most popular terms you may hear, you know, maybe at the shops, maybe, you know, amongst kind of things you see on Facebook or things like that. The most common word is burner, and that means the phone. The trap house is the building used as a base to sell drugs. The trap line is owning a mobile phone specifically for the purpose of running and selling drugs. The phones that have been recovered from children and young people have nothing more on them than one phone line, and that's so that nobody can be traced. Going country is the most popular term that describes county line activity, and abandos is abandoned houses. We put this information out to the schools, and very quickly our schools were hearing the term burner, but we had no evidence that there was any other county activity other than the children were using this new language. And the new language, as I've alluded to, was from the music, the drill music that they'd heard. If you come across any kind of terms that you're not sure of out in your communities, there is something called the Urban Dictionary, which is online. If you hear a word that isn't in the Oxford Dictionary, go to the Urban Dictionary. This is updated every single day with terms and words that are used by young people all over the country, because with any exploitation, the language will constantly change to keep us on the back foot all the time. So as part of county lines, we have something associated with it called cuckooing. And this is where gang activities take place in local areas. So a gang will come and scout out an area, and they will be looking for people who live on their own, vulnerable adults with learning difficulties or drug and alcohol, mental health issues. They will befriend this person, and then basically they take over their house. They keep the person in the house happy by supplying them with drugs, alcohol, or use fear and intimidation. How you would spot the signs of cuckooing in your local areas would be a report to yourselves maybe of new unfamiliar people visiting the property, increased comings and goings from a particular property, increased vehicles outside the property or hire cars, antisocial behaviour, and these victims will often withdraw from any services that have been around, or they'll actually withdraw from neighbours. What we know about cuckooing is that gang activity have changed their business model. I think we cannot be under the illusion that the people who run these gangs don't know what they're doing, because they're very sophisticated. They've changed their business model. Before lockdown, we saw this very much up and down the country. Again, not in South Tyneside, where the gangs were using the Airbnb facilities. So they were renting out properties to then do the kind of drug dealing from that particular area. So the key question is, excuse me, what are we doing in South Tyneside about this? You'll probably remember before lockdown, we had a massive drive on county lines, and I'm so pleased we did it then, where we got a drama production in called County Lines, which was very hard hitting, and we got all our young people to see it. We invited parents, carers, everybody, and everybody's feedback was that everybody should see this on a regular basis. Obviously, with lockdown, we haven't been able to bring it back in. We have spent a lot of time with our local business community, in particular the taxi drivers, the bed and breakfast, the hotels, just raising that awareness of county lines. It's in all the literature that we constantly put out to schools. Indeed, there's just been a support leaflet for parents who are worried about the targeting of their children online, which is one of the most common ways now of that happening. So we are constantly doing that all the time. We are supporting where we can the British Transport Police, because obviously the main network in South Tyneside is our metro system and our buses. So we have supplied the British Transport Police with the posters and the leaflets that they can give out on public transport. But as you can appreciate, with COVID, a lot of this work's kind of not being as high profile as we wanted to. But that said, it's now been stepped up for fear that some of our children are going to be targeted online. So that work is ongoing. And it's like anything you do, you don't think it's making an impact. Well, clearly it had, because we were invited to take part and deliver a county line session for the local government association, because people had heard how effective our work had been in South Tyneside around keeping our young children safe. So that was really good. And really, again, it's if you have any concerns. But I think the assurance for members is, at the moment, we do not have any evidence of county lines activity, but it would be very, very remiss of us to think it wasn't happening, because it must be. And that's what the police will say. So we are constantly looking for it. We are trying to get as much information out to children and workers about the threat of county lines, in particular during the COVID pandemic, when children and young people we know are being targeted online more than ever before. And that's it.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much for that, Jackie. Could you put the screen back to?
Yeah, just there.
Right, thank you for that, Jackie. Right, colleagues, as you can see, I mean, that is pretty scary to me. If you note, Jackie never uses the term youths or young people. She uses the word children because that's what they are, children, and they're our children, and we have to be there to protect them. I know some of you may have already heard this report, but I thought it would be very, very important and interesting for it to come back to scrutiny, just so we can keep our minds focused on this problem, and we don't want it to kick off in any big style in South Tyneside, because, like I said, they're our children. Jackie, would it be possible for you to forward this report on to all members of the committee?
Yes, of course.
Just for their own records and their own purposes.
Yeah.
But I want to open it to questions and any points that members wish to raise. I've got Geraldine Kilgour first. Geraldine?
Thanks, Chair. Mine is really just a comment and one question. Jackie, I just applaud you and the team for all of the work that has been put into this and the multi-agencies that are involved. The first time I heard you give this report, it was hard-hitting. It remains hard-hitting. That doesn't change. The production that you talk about was fantastic. It went through all of our schools. I do wish, you know, maybe more parents had attended those individual sessions, but we did, or you did, your best to get that out there. I think the only question I've got is what else can we as members do? Because we know our children in our communities, we know where their homes are. We do certainly Felgate Metro within the wards that I represent. And it's really important that you let us know what it is that we can do to support and to safeguard our vulnerable in the community, please.
Thank you, Councillor Gilgal. Well, really, the plea is from the police because it's criminal exploitation. So if you had any concern around any activity that you thought, you know, this doesn't look right, it doesn't sound right, then, you know, 101, ring the police, because the police are really struggling with this because they don't have any evidence. But, you know, we're not daft. We know that, you know, there must be something probably going on. What Newcastle have seen through their county lines is that it's the recruitment of people that have then been taken down to the Midlands to work in the trap houses. So it's not that they're using them to transport drugs, they're actually using the transportation of people to then work in that particular area. And the reason they do that is because those people are totally unfamiliar with that area, so they have total control over them. So the plea is, if you see anything, either put it through to Force Intelligence through an email, or you ring 101 and report it in, because it might be the final piece in the jigsaw that the police are needing.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Councillor Gibson,
Yeah.
sorry, Councillor Brady is.
Councillor Brady. Bill, yeah.
You're on mute, Councillor Brady.
Sorry, can you hear?
Yeah, that's better, Bill. We can hear you now.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Bill.
Jackie, I'd just like to ask you, hey, you okay?
Yeah.
Jackie, I've read in the press and different things about how these children were transported to different areas and how they worked. They were driven in cars, they got train tickets and all kinds like that. But I read an article just a couple of weeks ago, and it said that changing how they distribute, how these young children